into plaza shops which are then operated by illegal foreigners. Informal trading, I will not touch much, but it has an impact on, and the accusation is that certain foreign nationals, they approach South Africa to make an offer in a financial way to make sure that there is money that is given in exchange of the space. That is sometimes difficult for municipalities to control, because to run a plaza shop in a garage is mostly not a legalized form of informal trading. And in most instances, municipalities, because they don't have community safety units, they are unable to keep up and make sure that they regularize or they stop the trading in such a manner. So we must also say to the committee that it does become difficult, though the municipality may have a bylaw of illegal land use, to be able to cope with the number of people who move into that local sphere, into that localized municipality and trade illegally. Employment, I will not touch so much on it, but it is important to know that it also has an impact, but it's also a balance. There are businesses which are run by foreigners which employ South Africans and vice versa. But it is important, as assisted by Stats SA, that only 5% of South African businesses employ non-South Africans. And we need to look into that. We have done this comparison in a study in the city of Tshwane using the SMME, and these statistics was found both in Tshwane and in Johannesburg. And the study was done by ZEC. It's available for distribution if it's needed. Competitiveness, the Competition Commission, we participated as SALGA as well into their retail grocery market at the beginning of this year in February, March 2019. And the 4 areas of challenges of competitiveness were raised, and they are clearly articulated there, Chairperson, in terms of improving the bargaining power collective of our locals. We all know that owners of plaza shops, they are mostly, for them to make more money is if they buy in bulk. And it's a culture which we usually don't have ourselves. We are individualized in business, and the competitive edge we lose because we don't form partnerships and access to credit finance, business skills, and regulation on land use and informal sector are part. There is a Gauteng City Region Observatory which undertakes studies every 2 years. And their last study that we have in access and participated in is 2013. But they did have a study in 2017 as well, which revealed that 80% of informal businesses in Gauteng are owned by South Africans, while 20% are owned by local and international migrants. It's an available study of 2016. I'm sure Executive Mayor knows the Gauteng City Region Observatory. We use them, we utilize them. They run an independent research every 2 years, and in some instances every yearly. And it informs the ownership and the levels which businesses is being run. Of course, you have a South African migration program which involves a study of around 618 migrants and refugees in Johannesburg. And it indicated again that 46% were asylum seekers, refugees, or permanent residents, and 20% held work permits, 12% had visitors permits, and 12% had no documentation. Now the question is, what did we do on this to inform about these studies that we have undertaken and the research to inform the partnership and the work that we do as SALGA with Stats SA, and that's the data on informal sector employment with respect to employment and informal enterprises. And that culminated into what I spoke to in regional economies to create the regional variances, and that led to what the President today is calling the district model in terms of centralizing economies within the regions themselves to be able to develop and use data to indicate how best can we assist in this. Of course, rural provinces, I will not read them, we all know them, but we can only conclude that the poverty, the high poverty levels are having a high proportion of people working in the informal sector. So the more poor people there are, the more the sector needs to thrive, and the more the issue of illegal land use becomes difficult to manage. Because if you're unemployed, you then try to put a umbrella at a particular corner, hoping that selling bananas or apples or whatever will bring you an income. And that creates in its own a difficulty for municipalities to manage. And this is linked particularly to the high figures, as I'm saying, of high unemployment, but relation between budgets of what municipalities receive for the local economic programs in the informal settlement and informal sectors talks a very different stories. So I will not touch base, but you know this. It's in our Q4 2018. These are our own calculations confirmed by Stats SA in 2019. And this is a division of sectors, mainly in the municipalities, but also countrywide. Now, this talks to migration and municipal planning, and I think, Chairperson, this is the most part that we are more interested in. What do we do and how do we plan as municipalities and the sector in this? The rates of urbanization and peri-urban areas, towns, cities, make planning for migration critical. We know that. The livelihood that's spent in municipalities and even provinces occur in cycles that are linked to seasonal economic opportunities. If you check Stats SA results of the very same 2019 and look at people who left Limpopo, not any outside the boundary, who left Limpopo province to come to Gauteng, you will see that it's almost in the region of about 5%. So the total population, which is what is currently sitting in some of the provinces, it does show that they will bear the strain of migration, whether it's internally or it comes from foreign-born immigrants. So we need, as municipalities, one, to have credible data, which seemed to be relatively difficult. Hence, we had to undertake studies ourselves on behalf of municipalities. But secondly, we need the budgeting process of the country, which forces us to plan from the view of the past, to change on what's happening, to likely to change the migrating patterns even in the country. The data on IDPs is not necessarily an up-to-date real-time data, because remember, on your IDP you use your previous 2016 Stats SA in 2019. So if you are budgeting for and Stats SA and equitable share, you have got 200 households. At a particular time, you are budgeting for double of those households, but the equitable share is not increasing according to that. And the public participation methods, of course, tend to force us as municipalities to cater for the present, when citizens actually, what they want, it's now. And they are building a shack now as we are sitting in a particular space. Jurisprudence, I will not take long. I think it's clearly articulated. But we have seen that what our courts of law are saying, we need to respect dignity, the right to dignity, the rule of law, promotion of administrative justice, but also the right of the property rights of Section 25. Now, in 2018, the Socio-Economic Rights Institute, upon our request as SALC, concluded this review. So it's well researched. We just did not go to Google and pick up cases. And we could, I think in your package, we did a bit try to highlight some of the cases, which I will not talk too much about them, ranging from the Constitutional Court, also with the Limpopo Economic Development of Tourism, where the department refused to award trading licenses to refugees and asylum seekers, and they went to court and win. Coincidentally, it's my province, but I had no influence. The Supreme Court of Appeal, also cases which have been tabulated, and in such circumstances where persons who have no means to support themselves, the court has ruled in their favor to say, but this person is unemployed and is trying to make a living. Though you may term it illegal land use, but they're trying to make a living in a legal manner, justifiably, even though you need to give them, therefore, a license to work. The South African Informal Traders Union in Johannesburg in 2013 took a case to the Constitutional Court, and this was the summary, which says many of these dependents are children who are members of this, and therefore the ability for them to earn money as their parents and support themselves is an important component of which the judge looked at, rather than not offering what the city was requesting. Having respect to the rule of law is important, and local government must operate according to the applicable legislation. And I did indicate that by ordinarily all municipalities are supposed to have community safety units, of which out of the 205 local municipalities, when we do the study, it's less than 57 who are able to have that. Now, what does that mean? It means you need to be able to move the streets daily and say you are a formal trader, you are formalized, you should be here. No, you are informal, we are going to formalize you, or you are not supposed to trade with what you are trading in now. Then you confiscate the goods. So that gives a duty to law enforcement as in SAPS to be able to assist the municipalities to do that, and they also do not have the sufficient capacity to do that. So the Business Act narrows that range of activities to require the license issued by municipalities and places the limits on the way in which municipalities can regulate. How best can we regulate it? I think we may also have to look into this Business Act and see now, because it was narrow initially when it was done, how do we expand on it? For example, if a municipality needs to limit or prohibit informal work, they must follow the procedure of Section 6A2 of the Business Act. So this limitation prohibits constant or instant reaction by municipalities to be able to put measures of supervision and control in the space that they will serve. But Chairperson, I must also admit that we have not been forward-coming as a sector as well in trying strongly to cap against such, because we should be able to have policies that react fast to that. Section 33 of the Constitution entrenches the administrative justice to fundamental human rights. We need to be just in the decision and the action that we are taking as local government. In the High Court, which decided in the appointment of property of a certain Mr. Makwichana, was an excessive public power constituting an administrative action. So you will know that in this High Court, the court said you are using too much force and you shouldn't. So the basic principle of the application of the law is discussed below, but I will not go into it. You could be able to take a glance on it later on. But we, as municipalities, need to deal with. So municipalities in their own right have been trying in many cases, at Tegwini, anywhere else, to try and deal with such issues of maintaining order in the sector. Bylaws made by municipalities have spoken to the review that we have done and the Business Act, and we say that within the bounds, for example, in a Tegwini bylaw, did not distinguish between non-compliance with formalities, which is less serious contraventions of the bylaw, and the absolute prohibitions against trading.
Yeah,
so we find that we may have...
We have less than 5 minutes.
Okay, less. Okay. I'll jump, Chairperson, this information. You didn't tell me how many minutes I have, but it's okay. I can go to, because I've touched quite a number of these issues, go towards the summary, which I've also spoken into, but I would want to go straight into the challenges so that members can now know, going forward, where could they zoom into. The legal policy, which is the update of bylaws. We have done the study, as I've indicated. We're possibly at the draft to assist municipalities, those that don't have, so that they can have a pro forma guide on how to develop these bylaws which are constitutionally aligned. Bylaws in place for municipalities cannot enforce as they do not have human resources. I've spoken to the units themselves, and this needs a constitutional alignment. Registration of informal trading or informal sector in order to understand and develop support strategies. This is what I'm talking about. The information and data that we are working in is yesterday when the changes are happening in our situation on a day-to-day basis. And this calls on us to go and review the Business Act of 1991. Resources and implementation, I've touched on it in a little bit. The data on developmental local government municipalities. We need national data sets for migration that are fresh and frequent. Cohesive communities that are going to be accountable to local government. I think we need, as municipalities, to enforce that. Our recommendation from CoGTA, we will continue to partner with DHA. We'll develop the model policies and the bylaws that every municipality, so we'll ask the committees, particularly our portfolio committee on CoGTA, to assist us on that. Municipalities to adopt, therefore, after they've been given a pro forma, possibly we could set a time frame with the assistance of NCOP, and then we implement and enforce those bylaws. Possibly with the implementation of the district model, it may not necessarily mean that every local municipality, 205 of them, must have this human resource capacity. If it's centralized at the district level, it can then be taken down into the all small local municipalities. We seek out the models that exist in some municipalities to facilitate the dialogue on communities and their locals. Our MAG and our BPP for infrastructure needs to invest in the informal sector in terms of infrastructure, so that there's order. The eye is that upset by how people are trading, but also there's user friendliness on how we promote the sector. The cooperation of the sphere trade, I won't talk too much to them, but it's important because we operate from as a sphere of government, and national and provincial within the sphere which we operate in also have an important role to play in making sure that we deal with such issues. Chair, sorry for taking time, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. I'm the only one who protects members. Thank you very much. I think in the presentation, in the invitation, it does say there is 30 minutes allocated for a presentation. And even in the agenda now, it does say that there is 30 minutes allocated, so we need to respect it. Welcome, Honorable van der Merwe, Honorable Muela, and welcome, Honorable Minister. Can we get the second presentation from the City of Johannesburg? Councillor Ahmed Mashawa.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to the two sittings of Parliament. We really, as a City of Johannesburg, greatly appreciate finally to get this opportunity to come and address you on this very, very important subject of migration in the City of Johannesburg. And I think, as our slide says, what we as a City of Johannesburg, when we requested this meeting, and fortunate enough, when we requested the meeting with the chairperson, we addressed our correspondence and proof thereof to all the members of the committee, so that we are asking for your help, because we feel that we are already being failed by the Department of Home Affairs. And I think that is something that I would really want us not to really lose focus on the actual purpose of us requesting this meeting. We requested the meeting, chairperson, to assist us with getting Home Affairs to ensure that our foreign nationals coming into South Africa are documented, they come into South Africa legally, and for some reason, if they don't get the documentation, please let us ensure that those who qualify, can they please be immediately be documented, so that as a city of Johannesburg, we know who's in our city. I'm sure all of you are aware this country, the city of Johannesburg in particular, over the last 136, 137 years, built at the background of foreign nationals from all over the world coming into our country. And us as a city of Johannesburg, we are committed to that project of getting international money coming into South Africa. We are interested and we pursue to getting international resources, be human capital or otherwise, to come into the city of Johannesburg. But without the support of our national structure, in particular Home Affairs, we have no chance of ever succeeding, because unfortunately our competency as a municipality are very clear in our constitution. And I have given enough evidence of the attempts over the last 3 years in engaging Home Affairs in total good faith in finding a resolution to this matter. Because in the process of Home Affairs failure, who are the people who get the brunt of this? Firstly, our poor communities, South Africans. Secondly, who are the second biggest casualties of this? Our own foreign nationals who are not documented, because then you get criminal syndicates taking advantage of their vulnerability. It is for that reason when we requested this meeting. So I think why I'm bringing this background, so that we don't really lose sight of why we requested this meeting. We really would require you as Parliament to ensure that Home Affairs discharges its responsibility as enshrined in our constitution, to ensure that we have the department that ensures that everyone coming into South Africa, every South African is documented. Because as I'm sitting here talking to Parliament, there's a woman giving birth to a child. It is our constitution that requires that upon woman giving birth, this child must be immediately be given a birth certificate. As I'm talking to you right now, there's someone, fellow South African or foreign national, who dies. Home Affairs has got a responsibility to ensure that when someone dies, immediately a death certificate is issued, so that the country knows at all times who's in the country, how many people we have. Because if we don't have such information, I cannot imagine how we are going to succeed running this country. Because what we are experiencing in the city of Johannesburg, it's unfortunately is beyond really measure. And I brought with me a team from the city of Johannesburg. On my left is MMC Dr. Palazzi, who heads the MMC of Social Development and Health. And the next to her is MMC San, MMC of Public Safety. And then at the back, I've got Mr. Isaac Mukhashwa, who's the city's group legal. And next to Isaac, I have the Chief of Police, Mr. David Tembe. And next to Mr. Tembe is Mr. Alistair Shaw, who is also in the legal department in the mayor's office. And next to him is Tony Handel, used to tourism. Tony's, his surname, I always tell him, is a double barrel. I said, Tony, always a battle with your, and I work with him every day. But Tony handles, he used to be in the legal office, but now he handles our communication in the office. So with this team, because the presentation, I take it as that you've got it there. I would like you to really give you a sense of what we're going through, because what we as a city of Johannesburg are here appealing to Parliament to assist us to get Home Affairs to carry out its responsibility. That's a purpose. And it was explicitly explained in all our correspondence to the portfolio why we requested this meeting. Because we've made various attempts, and I think Tony will take you through, including engaging the South African Human Rights Commission, including involving the African Diaspora Forum. And one thing that I think David Temba will share with you as well is that us as a city of Johannesburg, we are not only sitting with problems of undocumented foreign nationals only from Africa. We are sitting with people from all over the world. From all over, literally all over the world, who are in the city of Johannesburg. We've got the information coming from our police department with the frustration where last night we were discussing with the chief of police and their frustration as JMPD. They keep on arresting the very same people. We arrest them the next day, a few days, a week later, they are back in the streets. So we are really frustrated. We are appealing to Parliament and Home Affairs to really work with us as the city of Johannesburg. We are willing to ensure that our foreign nationals coming into this country are documented. Because unfortunately, in terms of creating unnecessary tension, when people know in our communities that some people are here illegally, but it is not up to the city of Johannesburg to verify that. That's a responsibility of Home Affairs. We've got not tens, we've got thousands of cases of fraudulent documentation. We arrest, the JMPD will arrest a few days later or a week later, they arrest the very same person back in the streets. So, unfortunately, if we're not going to really ask Parliament to assist us to get Home Affairs to carry out their constitutional duties, we have massive challenge. Because of time, I'm going to request the MMC Palazzi just to give you a sense, because as a city of Johannesburg, we've got a unit that looks after the welfare of our foreign nationals in this regard. But at the same time, the challenges, and after her, the MMC San will give you a sense of the efforts JMPD has been really trying the last 3 years, because we've only been in government for 3 years. And then Tony will conclude to really give you a sense of our engagements with the South African Human Rights Commission and all the other with the migratory bodies and other human rights lawyers to try and get Home Affairs to cooperate with us in our frustration. And we've got everything in black and white in terms of how the last 3 years, I'm dealing obviously, as you are aware, with a fifth minister. But at the end of the day, I hope by the time we really leave this very important meeting, that we can have a sense and the commitment from Home Affairs. We are asking them because it is not the competency of the municipality to carry out Home Affairs matters. MMC, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Executive Mayor. Thank you, Chairperson. I'm responsible for health and social development in the city of Johannesburg. Within the social development department, we've got a subunit that focuses on migration, takes care of migrants. We've established migrant help desks in the 7 regions of the city. These are the first point of contact for migrants with the city of Johannesburg, where they can get an orientation around the city, but where we can also facilitate their integration into society. Because of these tensions that are driven by competition for scarce resources, we also have a counter-xenophobia program, which is targeting both locals and migrants. We facilitate dialogues between locals and migrants. We also have awareness programs as well as education programs targeting locals. We educate them on migration and its causes. We educate them on the human trafficking of foreign nationals. We educate them on the exploitation of foreign nationals in the labor market, as well as marriages of convenience and so on and so forth. So these are programs that we run within social development. We also facilitate referrals where foreign nationals require services from, for instance, Home Affairs. We refer to Home Affairs, but a referral does not necessarily mean that the person will get help. We all know about corruption within our Home Affairs offices. We know about the backlogs. So most of the people that we refer, unfortunately, remain without assistance, and they remain within our borders, and they continue to require services. For instance, we refer them for social services to our social workers. We refer them to NGOs such as the Lawyers for Human Rights, for legal services, and whatever other needs that they have, we would then need to address. Whatever social ills that they have, we would then need to address. I think the SALGA representative alluded to the chronic underfunding of government departments as a result of people in our midst who are unaccounted for when Treasury or through equity equitable share when allocations are made to municipalities, migration is not factored into the equation. And that is a problem for our planning, it's a problem for our budgeting. As I said, I'm also responsible for the Department of Health. We have an electronic health record system in our clinics, and we've been able to extract data on undocumented patients from 66 of our clinics that have electronic health records. And what we found was that about 21% of our patients are undocumented patients. Now, I need to qualify that because an undocumented patient is not necessarily an undocumented foreign national. It can also be an undocumented local patient for whatever reason, either for confidentiality reasons, they don't want to give their details, or they may not have documentation, but the vast majority of our undocumented patients are illegal immigrants, and it is a challenge for the health system because it compromises the quality of care that we're able to give to everybody. As you know, with communicable diseases or infectious diseases, if you don't treat one person, then nobody is safe because diseases will move regardless of nationality, regardless of whether you're documented or not. Therefore, we are forced to treat everybody, even though we do not have the funding to treat everybody. And that remains a challenge, and that means that the quality of service that we render, even to locals, remains below what it is supposed to be. So these are the ongoing challenges that we have within the city of Johannesburg. We continue to address them. However, we really need Home Affairs to come on board. Our mandate is limited. We cannot operate outside of our scope. We really need Home Affairs to really execute its mandate so that all of us can function normally, so that we can plan and we can budget and we can render the kind of service that our people deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and to your honourable members, the two mayors, colleagues from the Kulileni councillors, officials. I'll be very quick, Chairperson. I'll go straight to the point. Ms. Palasi, if I could ask you to assist me to go to that slide. It should be right at the back. Chairperson, what I want to present to you is actually a list of statistics. Before I get there, I just want to share with you it's okay, I'll read it off from the paper. What I do want to share with you is the competency in this regard. I focus on the Johannesburg Metro Police Department. We have three core, in fact, legislative mandates: bylaw enforcement, traffic management, and very importantly, crime prevention. Crime prevention is the aspect where we overlap with a lot in terms of JMPD, SAPS, and other law enforcement agencies. The numbers I'm about to read to you below is the statistics of foreign nationals committing crimes in the city of Johannesburg. Out of the 3 years that we've been in government, the total number of foreign nationals arrested is 7,841. And if you ask me what nationalities they belong to, this is a very serious matter, but if I had to show you this looks like the World Cup of crimes in the city of Johannesburg. We've got countries ranging from Algeria, Australia, Angola, Bangladesh, Belgium, Benin, Burundi, China, Canada, Cameroon, all the way to Tanzania, Zimbabwe, United States, Uganda, France, Italy. We've limited ourselves to the top numbers, top ranking crimes by different nationals. And I really want to pause here. I think this is what our mayor has always been saying in the public. This isn't about a different nationality that we're focusing on, is the criminality. I want to bring to your attention maybe in terms of, just as an example, Mozambique, assault common, 217. Driving under the influence, 776. I go to Tanzania, counterfeit goods, 119 arrests. Nigeria, driving under the influence of alcohol, 212. False driver licenses, 193. Fraud, 206. Possession in or dealing in drugs, 87. I go to Zimbabwe. Counterfeit goods, 367. Hijacking, robbery of vehicles, 141. Possession of dangerous weapon, 211 arrests. Theft, 478. And that is just in terms of our Metro Policing arrest. This excludes the operation or the arrest done by SAPS. Moving away from the Metro Policing function, coming to emergency management services, our fire brigade service, our ambulance services, that is closely linked to disaster management. So whenever there's a fire of a major magnitude in the city of Johannesburg, our EMS resources and our ambulance resources are overstretched so much that when disaster management takes over, and when we have to work with Home Affairs, and Chairperson, this is where I need to stress that unfortunately the Home Affairs inspectors only work during the day from 8 till 4. So after that they knock off, they leave us to do our own thing. But when we have to provide temporary emergency shelters to a lot of the affected victims, we find that after an audit with the Department of Home Affairs inspectors, that sometimes over 95% of the resources from the city of Johannesburg are being provided to foreign nationals. Again, this is a problem for us in terms of many aspects of law enforcement, city management in the city of Johannesburg. Just to give you another example, in terms of bylaw enforcement, the citation will be declared to be invalid if the correct informations are not captured onto the citation document. Chief Tembe will tell you that often we have to come across offenders or transgressors are not able to produce an identity document, a passport, not even able to give us a full name that we can record into the citations. Therefore, these citations will become a waste when it comes to the court process. And certainly, we go out dealing with the same problems, the same transgressors and offenders day after day. Honourable members, these are not monies that we print in the basement of the city of Johannesburg. These are genuine resources, ratepayers' money that we have to use to ensure that we bring safety to a manageable level in the city of Johannesburg. However, a lot of the resources are being spent on something that we believe can better be managed. And this is where I conclude, Chairperson. I think I want to echo what my mayor and my MMC has said, that we're here to request for assistance. We're really here to say to the honourable MPs that it is outside our jurisdiction, and in fact, far from our competency. JMPD officers can't enforce on Home Affairs issues, but we are made to go out and do those functions. We don't have the extended powers, although we are asking for those powers so we can go out and assist Home Affairs to do their job. But then again, we come across obstacles, so we're really requesting the honourable members for me to share this information with you is not really to say that, Mr. Mayor, that we are against any foreign countries. In fact, we welcome them. But what we are saying is that when you're in our city of Johannesburg, please comply with our rules and comply with our laws. And certainly, when our officers have to go out and enforce, we need the cooperation. So once again, Honourable Chairperson, I thank you for your time. Please, I hope the information provided, we certainly make this available to the committee members so that you can take this and perhaps use it. And also pose a question to the Minister of Home Affairs, that out of the 7,841 arrests, how many visas have been revoked since the year 2016 until now? Thank you very much.
Can I please then ask Tony to just really give the members a sense of our involvement with Home Affairs?
Yeah, Chair. Honourable Executive Mayor, before I allow the members, it's like they want to raise something, but I see what appears to be like an ambush in terms of the presentation. That colourful presentation, I also don't have it here. I think if members do not want to raise that, would appreciate that we had requested that we get the presentation timeously for thorough preparations. But if possible, if we can get a copy of that colourful presentation.
Chairperson, I wouldn't lend you because I've written on here, but we'll certainly make a clear copy available for the committee. My apologies, I thought it was part of our main presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Honourable Chair. I think I'm covered with your intervention because I wanted to raise exactly the same question, that for us to be able to understand the gravity and comprehend your issues, why do you deliberately deprive us of that statistics? Because we've spent the entire weekend reading all the document presented to us, and the document you're referring to, it's not at our disposal. So you're limiting us in terms of engaging and comprehending the seriousness of your issues. I'm not sure whether that was a deliberate or an oversight from the side, because the presentation of the mayor, we've got it, and we were given it in advance. So I'm also appealing that even other presenters, if there are any additional information that are not presented to us before, they will limit our engagement on the matter. Thank you.
Honorable Lingwasi.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson and the Honourable Member. That I hear you. This information, we were actually quite lucky that I also became aware of it last night when we were having our briefing session, when JMPD went on their own to really provide additional information. That's why MMC was already aware that he was under the impression that it was already loaded here. So it's new information, but fortunately enough, we do have copies and we'll make this available to you. Because this, even to us, was really quite a revelation, and we really applaud JMPD for doing extra work to prove to Parliament that we are not here to play. We do have substantial evidence to back up whatever challenges that we are having. So Tony is not going to talk about anything new. What Tony is going to be presenting, it's in the presentation. Our frustration over the last 3 years dealing with Home Affairs. Tony, the floor is yours.
Maybe
Mr.
before
Mayor.
Tony starts, if we can get the document so that we can get members. No, Parliament will do that for you. We are now in Parliament. Let's get the copy so that as we get other presentation, members can try to interact with the document. Then we can proceed on, Tony.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Good morning, Minister Mutsualedi, Honourable Members. My name is Tony Tivunduchurizan. I'm the former legal advisor to Mayor Mashaba and his current Director of Communications. I want to just give some background in time and context specifically with regards to the legal challenges and the efforts that the city did make in total good faith with the department to try and find a working relationship together and ultimately a solution to what we do see as a crisis in the city of Joburg. If I go back to mid-2017, there had been a complaint laid against the mayor for alleged xenophobic comments being made by the African Diaspora Forum, which is one of the largest migrant organizations in Johannesburg. I don't want to go into all the details around that, but ultimately there was a settlement agreement reached with the Human Rights Commission and the African Diaspora Forum, where we found common ground with one another, and ultimately the African Diaspora Forum wanted to join the city of Johannesburg in taking Home Affairs to court to force them to do their job. Ultimately, I think it's important to note, and unfortunately we do not have migrants here to speak for themselves, but many migrants are desperate for this situation to be resolved because they are waiting for their papers. And on that, I want to read a judgment from the Supreme Court of Appeal dating back to 2016. It was the 2016 judgment of Scalabrini Centre, Cape Town versus the Minister of Home Affairs. In this judgment, the judge was quite scathing, and I want to quote one paragraph. As regards the decrease in the number of asylum seekers and alleged improved efficiency in dealing with asylum applications, the department overlooks the fact that according to its own records, as at May 2015, there was a backlog of some 100,000 files which had not yet been decided by a refugee status determination officer, and a backlog of more than 100,000 cases which had not been decided by the Refugee Appeal Board. Save for a board allegation that they are being addressed, the answering affidavit is silent on any progress made with these backlogs or whether they have increased since May 2015. Apart from this, the alleged efficiency is questionable. I would really want to implore the members that we are dealing with a human crisis, and if we are trying to help foreign nationals as well in this process, it is vital that the department is held to account to ensure that it fulfills its constitutional mandate. Coming out of the human rights settlement with the African Diaspora Forum, the mayor started to write further correspondence to the ministers at the time. Notably, towards the end of 2017, the Mayor gave the Department of Home Affairs a time frame within which to provide the City of Joburg with a concrete plan to address the challenges of undocumented migrants within the City of Johannesburg. No plan was forthcoming. However, as we are well aware, there's the Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act, which compels us at all levels of government to do everything possible to avoid litigation, unnecessary litigation in court. We have to exhaust our internal remedies. On the 7th of December 2017, we got correspondence from the state attorneys in which they suggested the establishment of a joint committee between the Department of Home Affairs and the City of Johannesburg. This was an intervention which the city was very welcoming of, because ultimately we did want to work together in the interests of our residents and foreign nationals alike. Towards the end of December, we received draft terms of reference, which were wholly unacceptable to the City of Johannesburg. They were vague, they had no specific time frames, and were not specific in what needed to be achieved. Ultimately, the city saw this as a delaying tactic to ensure that they would be able to keep the city out of court in perpetuity. After further correspondence between our lawyers and the state attorneys, the city ultimately agreed to have a meeting with the then DG of Home Affairs, Mr. Apuleni. In March 2018, that meeting took place, in which DG Apuleni gave us a substantive presentation, and we believe genuinely wanted to work with the city in finding long-term solutions to the challenges that were being faced. It was the instruction of the Executive Mayor Herman Mashaba that Apuleni, the DG at the time, and the City Manager of Johannesburg, Dr. Ndivo Lokwareni, would work together with administrative officials outside of political office to find a working way forward on this matter. Unfortunately, as you are well aware, DG Apuleni later resigned, and from his resignation, this process has ultimately collapsed, and the city is not able to work with the Department of Home Affairs in finding these solutions. And I want to give one example, because the city is currently in the process of drafting papers to file against the Department of Home Affairs on one of these matters. Temporary emergency accommodation is a major challenge that we face in the city of Joburg, and this goes back to the Blue Moonlight judgment in the Constitutional Court, which requires that anyone, and it does not matter what your status is, anyone who is rendered homeless as a result of an eviction or some other kind of natural disaster must be provided with temporary emergency accommodation. And it provides a joint responsibility between local government and province, and we are expected to proactively budget with regards to the provision of TEA. More than 2 years ago, there was a fire in one of the hijacked buildings in the city of Johannesburg, Cape York. It received a lot of news attention at the time. The city went on to have to provide emergency accommodation to an excess of 120 undocumented foreign nationals who were residing in that building. Of course, we understood that this was our responsibility in terms of the Constitutional Court judgment, and we willingly did so. It has been more than 2 years. These are undocumented foreign nationals. We have tried to engage the Department of Home Affairs on numerous occasions. MMC's son spoke to the issue with regards to overtime. A major issue we face with the Department of Home Affairs is that the officials refuse to work with us outside of normal office hours because they do not get overtime pay. This is something that seriously needs to be addressed, because you have a huge challenge when you're going in to try to identify. If you're trying to find the status of individuals during working days, it's often better for these operations to be conducted at night or in the early hours of the morning. In this specific case, the city is still housing these individuals at Wembley Stadium, and this is more than 2 years later. And this brings into serious question, what does temporary mean? Because for 2 years, this has been the financial burden of the city. And I must put this in context as well. We are dealing with a 300,000 housing unit backlog in the city of Johannesburg. We have a housing crisis, and we need to ensure that our resources are put properly there. Right now, what we have in the city of Joburg is that a city which has got no constitutional mandate whatsoever when it comes to migration issues is currently essentially running a refugee camp within the city of Joburg. This is the reality of what we are dealing with. We have been on raids in hijacked buildings. We have seen the living conditions of people. Ultimately, what we are calling for is for the Department of Home Affairs to fulfill its legal obligations in terms of the constitution of our country and relevant national legislation. We want to ensure that there's processing of foreign nationals within our country and in the necessary circumstances that they are provided with the necessary documentation. Ultimately, many people are trying to enter our country and are living in desperate conditions from neighboring countries in particular, due to political, social, and economic conditions. We need Home Affairs to come to their assistance, because right now they are living on the fringes of society. They are being taken advantage of by slum lords and drug traffickers. They are unable to properly integrate into our society because they are forced to live in the shadows of our society. If we want to see social integration within our society, social inclusion when it comes to South Africans and foreign nationals who are trying desperately to set up a new home in South Africa, we need to see our people need to have confidence in government's ability to do its job. Ultimately, we want to see our constitution upheld and the interests of foreign nationals protected. Thank you very much.
Honorable Executive Mayor, maybe you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
In some seconds, you're closing.
Yeah, thank you very much, the Chairperson and the committee for this real privilege. I think we've waited now 3 years to really have this opportunity. This is our last resort. We don't have anywhere else. I don't think it is proper in terms of intergovernmental relationships for us as a municipality to take Home Affairs to court. That is why we opted on this route, on asking Parliament intervention in this matter. Thank you very much for this great opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is the second presentation. Can we take the presentation of the City of Gruleni? Executive Mayor Masina, the floor is yours.
No, thank you very much. I will assume that the presentation was received. I will try to shorten the input so that we stay within the time allocated for the work. Firstly, let me greet the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and the Portfolio Committee members, Minister, Deputy Minister, Mayor Mashaba, the President of SALGA, and all other members of the Joint Committee that are here. When we were invited as a city, we did not know that we were going to discuss the state of dysfunctionality of the department, the national department, which in my view is really an unfortunate topic, as I see from my colleague Mayor Mashaba here. Because Home Affairs does two things in the Republic. Firstly, amongst its responsibilities is the civic responsibilities. In my city and probably somewhere in South Africa, we know that when a child is born in the country, a birth certificate is issued within the set time period. And we know that any adult in the country has got the smart ID. Those who are fortunate enough to get married, they get their marriage certificate on time. Those who travel, they get their travel document on time. If you are dead every weekend in our city, we don't bury people without a death certificate. So for me to say that there is an abdication of responsibility, it will be an unfortunate admission, especially at this level of the Portfolio Committee. Now, if we are dealing about the issue of immigration and shortcomings, let's have that conversation. And I would like to take the Portfolio Committees into confidence about the issues. And we will also all know that the lead time for processing of all these critical documents has significantly improved in different areas. So I am not by any means trying to be a spokesperson of Home Affairs. I'm just stating the facts as I know them, because I have undergone all these processes myself and I know the efficiency that have been demonstrated over time. Perhaps the issue on immigration is the issue of the asylum seekers and refugees, and which we will have a conversation about. Now, when you opened this meeting, Chair, you referred to the visit by the UN Commissioner on Refugees, and some of the things that he said that the reality in South Africa is that our country is overwhelmed, and this originates from the 2008 economic collapse, where we saw quite a number of people coming into our shores for this reason or the other. And this is happening at a time of economic uncertainty and social tension that is boiling in our communities. And for me, Those are the issues that we need to be dealing with. You will know that we have committed as the ANC-led government at various levels on the program around social cohesion to ensure that we build tolerance amongst communities. And that commitment for me still stands, and that's what we should be looking at, whether we're dealing with South Africans or foreign nationals, documented or not documented. Because we will know that documenting somebody does not change the behavior or attitude. It's one aspect. So the critical thing is what is the issue here at play that we need to be dealing with. You will know, Chairperson and members of the committee, that the country has recently signed the Continental Free Trade Agreement, whereas we are going to ensure the movement of people and goods. So to sit in the portfolio committee to say that, if you are not documented or documented, is exacerbating problems in communities is perhaps a misplaced debate that we must have. So for me, we would like to have a sustainable debate about what needs to be done to ensure. At the center of everything, Chair, is that we must all ensure the rule of law. The application of the rule of law for me is critical. And now, and why I'm raising this thing is then to go in and point out who are the people who are responsible for the movement of people in particular. You have got not less than 7 departments that are critical at the border post in dealing with the issue of movement of people, be it Home Affairs, the Department of Agriculture, Environment, Defense, Intelligence, Health, SARS, and so on. So this committee, if we're to deal with the complexities of including the police, we will have to ensure that all those key stakeholders at national level are actually aligned in terms of ensuring that we deal with the issues. And that brings me to the next issue that I want to address about what Chapter 7 of the Constitution says about local government. It talks about the object of local government having to provide a democratic and accountable government for local communities. And secondly, ensure the provision of services to communities in a sustainable manner. And thirdly, promote social and economic development. And fourthly, promote safe and healthy environment in different communities. And it goes on and on and on. Now, when we are referring to these issues, you did allude to the issues of the 3 layers of government and their different responsibilities. So we will not, as a city of Ekurhuleni, come to this forum to seek to get a portion of the responsibilities of the national government in terms of managing borders, but we'll rather come to the portfolio committee to deal with issues that affect us. Now, what characterizes the situation that confronts us in our metro is that we have seen the element of criminality and looting that has been taking place over a past period of time, in particular, if you look at the last incidents that we witnessed in the month of September. So we are having this conversation in mind, dealing with some of the complex issues. We have a population of about 3.3 million people in our area, and within the 112 wards that are allocated to us. And the rapid growth that we have seen brings about forced urbanization in our areas, and it reinforces the spatial segregation that was enforced even during apartheid. And all these are issues that we think we need to be dealing with. Now, what is the ideology of the ANC-led government that underpins our issues of migration? You will know that as early as in our recent conference in 2017, we spoke about the role of the ANC in building better Africa and a better world. And so by no means, in some of the incidences that happened, we'll shift away from the party political line in terms of, and what do we mean by that? We mean is a prosperous, stable, secure, and peaceful Africa that remains as an important object of our policy position as the ANC. We have recognized from our establishment in 1912 that South Africa's prosperity and success is linked to the success of the entire continent. So in everything that we do, we have that at the back of our mind. So we would like to believe that for us, that's the issue here. Now, what are the issues that are critical that we should perhaps deposit as part of this ongoing debate that seeks a solution to the work that we are doing? Is that it will be important by all relevant task departments to regulate the movement of people, inclusive of visitors into our country, either the refugees or asylum seekers. So we've got to find a way in which we increase our capabilities to ensure that that is properly regulated. The other issue that we refer to is around the rule of law, where we're saying basically it will be important to note that there's different pieces of legislation that have articulated quite succinctly what needs to happen. For instance, if you look at South African firms and businesses that are undertaking employment of undocumented foreign nationals at the expense of South African citizens, there's very clear labor laws in the country that spells out the 70-day split in terms of that. But if it is not implemented or monitored, especially at our level, at local government level, or even at Department of Labor level, we will have the crisis that is confronting us now as a country. And we're saying that it will be important for us to work together to deal with those issues. Now, when we experience this recent surge of violence, we arrested over 265 people, a majority, and then we also worked with the department, with embassies, to ensure that we repatriate over almost 379 people to go into different areas. Now, what are the impacts of the undocumented foreign nationals? So some of the issues that we want to raise is that we know that as cities, including us as the city of Ekurhuleni, we are faced with complex socio-economic challenges, especially of youth unemployment, poverty, and inequality. So that's why it's important that we must emphasize the rule of law and ensure that at all material times we ensure that that is enforced. The second area is around ensure that we prevent encroachment in our borders, and to make sure that our borders are not as porous as they currently are. And I'm sure that there are some of the initiatives that the Home Affairs and other stakeholders are working on to ensure that that work is being done. The increased number of hawkers have a negative impact on some of our cities, so we're therefore saying that documented or undocumented, those who come into the country, they must adhere to the rule of law and ensure that they play according to the rules that have been set up, including what we've experienced, the increase of the illegal mining activities, which approximates about 70% of the miners are said to be undocumented foreign nationals, especially within the gold belt in our city. So this leads to a demand of unplanned service delivery within our city. And we are saying that we've got to work together with all the law enforcement agencies to make sure that we deal with that. Now, the effect of this is that some people who are here use some of the municipal services without proper billing, so that affect the fiscus of the municipality, and especially in some of the local businesses like the spaza shop, we have had a number of initiatives where we've dealt with the sale of counterfeit goods, which is on the rise, and other issues that we have witnessed. So all these issues, including the unfair trading competition, because foreign nationals who are running spaza shop, they basically do bulk buying, and we're saying that there has to be a return of law. Everyone must act according to the Business Act and ensure that we were able to assist our own local businesses as metros. Now, the impact of all of this is that we must, as cities, support the efforts and initiatives of all levels of government to ensure that we deal with these issues. There is an impact also around issues of human settlement, especially where government is trying to deal with the issue of the expansion of the informal settlement. We find that there is a resistance, especially by some of the foreign nationals who do not qualify for our subsidy housing scheme, who actually want to ensure that this phenomenon is exacerbated. So if we make sure that the rule of law reigns in the country, things like this be avoided, especially around the human settlement, the land use right, and so on and so on. So these are the issues that we are looking at in safety. Our police, because of the inability to know. And one of the things that we're beginning to pick up is that, in fact, even if we can document these people, if they're not documented at home, it has a zero effect in the way. So there has to be a way in which through our diplomatic channels, there are engagements in dealing with these issues, so that if our police make arrest here, we can link those individual citizens to their countries back at home. There are certain areas in our city where we have seen some illegal activities taking place, and we really would want to engage Department of Mineral Resources, the police, and other arms of government who can assist us to deal with the illegal mining around the Benoni area, to deal with drugs and prostitution around the Boksburg area, as well as Brakpan and drugs in Edenvale, and the hijacking of buildings in Germiston. We've got a number of initiatives that we're undertaking to deal with those things. But also the impact of this on health. We've seen the expenditure growing exponentially, and we're saying that work must be done there. And there is a new phenomenal chair of the medical shopping, where some of the foreign nationals move from one clinic to the other, taking medication like the HIV/AIDS drugs, sending them home, either in Zimbabwe or Mozambique. And we really have to make sure that the sum total of this, if we have to bring back the rule of law, we must make sure that certain things is done, in particular around the borders. As I move towards the conclusion, because we all have looked into this thing, what we would like to propose, Honorable Minister and the Chairperson, is that firstly, we must ensure the effective and consequential border management and control. We know that we are having a conversation which would like you to expedite around the border management agency that is going to actually help us to pull together all these different pieces of legislation that have caused a cumbersome environment in our localities to deal with the issues that is confronting us, so that you can work together. The second thing is to ensure effective relationship between different spheres of government in order to ensure that we can create decent work and sustainable livelihood for our people on the ground. And the third issue is just enhancing intergovernmental relation to support us as cities to deliver on our mandate, not us as cities wanting to take the mandate of national departments. And the fourth issue is around ensuring that we regulate and enforce the participation of foreign nationals in the formal sector of the economy, so that we keep or ring fence the informal sector of the economy amongst the citizens, so that they can improve their livelihood, broaden the localized law enforcement forum, including all the law enforcement agencies, to ensure that there are joint operations to deal with things like hijacking of buildings, which has become rampant in our different cities. Review the Immigration Act in order to address the abuse of the waiver provision, and consider the utilization and integration of cities' courts as immigration courts, because we know that we have not at this point established the immigration courts according to Immigration Acts. We would like to extend these services at our municipal court, so that we can expedite some of the issues that are coming up, but also enforce the labor laws regulation, as I spoke about, the 70-day apportionment in favor of South Africans, because this is what, in our view, is bringing tension on the ground beyond just documentation or not being documented of foreign national. And then also, so these are the things that we are proposing as a way forward, which we think should constitute the work that we must do. In conclusion, Chair, we can write each other many letters. The frustrations of government requires proper coordination of, not of individual, of institutions of government in order for us to have an impact. So if there is a problem in Johannesburg, in Ekurhuleni, in Tshwane, other metros, including small municipalities, it requires a very strong, as proposed by SALGA, inter-ministerial or intergovernmental committee that is going to look into what is the government approach given the provision that is made in law about the things that we should be looking at in different spheres, so that all of us can make sure that we work towards ensuring that we deal with the problem. For us as a city, what is creating the tension in localities, because South Africans are not xenophobic, is the current socio-economic prevailing condition, which is not just about the city or about the province or the country, it's global. So we've got to find a solution that is going to touch on the lives of our people in order for us to make a meaningful contribution. I would like to end the program, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we take the last presentation? Honorable Minister, you can proceed. Your time has started.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me acknowledge you and the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, Home Affairs, as well as on CoGTA. Let me also greet the President of SALGA, Mayor Thembing, and the two executive mayors, Mayor Masha
But I'm not challenging that it might be there. It's just that I haven't seen it. And I said, if it suits him, he may resend it on Monday. I went back to the department, and I found that the correspondence was there. Only that I have not yet seen it because we're still setting up administration, getting to a new office and all that. And of course, Mayor Mashaba kept his word. He did resend the documents which he has done. But when I met him that Saturday in a funeral, apart from telling him I haven't seen correspondence, I asked the mayor that I've just arrived in the department and I need to learn lots of things. Because if I rush to meet him without knowing anything, I'm going to look like a fool. What am I going to tell him? When you arrive, I've been in government for a long time, Chairperson. When you arrive in the department, you look at the structure of the department, then you call people one by one to present to you. Some of the presentation can take more than a day. And I told him I'm still in that process because the Department of Home Affairs... Honorable Minister, there is a hand that keeps on...
Yeah, thank you.
Honorable Makluva.
Thank you, Chair. I want to respectfully ask that it is best for Home Affairs to present the presentation, and perhaps after that, the Minister can respond to every presentation. You know, we're going to waste time responding to a certain municipality. Perhaps we can follow that route, or I'm not too sure what the procedure is, whether the Minister is going to respond now to Salga, Ekurhuleni, as well as Gauteng.
Yeah, thank you. Honorable Chabane.
No, I thought the response by the Minister is part of the issues which are raised in one of the presentation of Councillor Mashaba. And I think that's the presentation that the department is trying to also respond on the issues that are raised. There may be no opportunity to do that other than the slot that has been given until we're going to enter into discussion. So I think we must allow the Minister to raise the issues that are being raised by all the presentation, including the one that is on the platform. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Mkalipi.
Yeah, Chairperson. I think let us allow the Minister, because I'm from CoGTA, I'm not from Home Affairs. And I want to understand thoroughly why we are here as CoGTA as well. So that background that the Minister is giving is also going to help us as the CoGTA portfolio committee to grasp what is the real issue before the Committee of Home Affairs and us here. Because we are going to end up being spectators without knowing what is happening. Let us allow him to present, and then we'll be able to engage after that.
Honorable Muela.
No, Honorable Chair, I think I'm in agreement with the other honorable members in mirroring Honorable Mkalipi. Remember, even Honorable Councillor Mashaba, I nearly said former councillor, but Councillor Mashaba, when he was presenting, that was on a lighter note. When he was presenting, he started with a background so that we can be able to understand Councillor Mashaba. So let's allow the Minister to do the same and give response, and then we'll go into details. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, on a point of order, with due respect, what the Minister is explaining is in the papers all in front of us. I've read what the Minister explained now. It's in the communication in front of us, so maybe the members don't read.
Okay, I recognize.
So I'm the only one who can read.
No, on a point of order, Chair, I think let us be honest to ourselves, because even the issues that were raised by the outgoing Honorable Mayor are contained within the presentation. And now what the Honorable Minister is doing is to responding to one of the cries as outlined by the outgoing Mayor that he was not finding joy. So we are getting responses from the department, which is in line with what we are here for. Unless the Honorable Member does not understand what was the issues as raised by the outgoing Mayor.
Thank you.
I propose that we proceed and allow the Minister to articulate and give a contextual understanding of the issues as presented by the outgoing Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I think, honorable members, we have had a long presentation. Honorable members, they want to engage generally now. That is why we are interrupting. But our attitude of starting the meeting was giving every presenter 30 minutes. What he does with that 30 minutes, it's up to the presenter and the presentation. Whether he reiterates what is in the presentation, it's up to the presenter. Whether you bring us additional information, which was the case in other presenters, that is up to the presenter. All that is important that we give the minister and the department their 30 minutes to present. So, Honorable Minister, the floor is yours. I'm sorry that we just interrupted you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, before I was rudely interrupted, Chairperson, I was outlining the background to what I understand Councillor Mashaba is here for. Because he's saying he is putting a cry to the committee to help to get the Department of Home Affairs to cooperate. And I'm trying to respond to that. I don't know what Honorable Metlua is all about. And when Councillor Mashaba was presenting, he never said anything. He presented in a way he deemed fit to put his presentation. May I be given the similar privilege, please? Now, I was saying, Chairperson, I then told Mr. Mashaba that I'm still taking presentation. Because, Chairperson, the Department of Home Affairs consists of two arms, as you can see there. The first arm being the civic matters, which affect 57 million South Africans. It's about getting a birth certificate, it's about getting an ID, it's about getting married, it's about we don't deal with divorce. Divorce is Minister of Justice, it's not us. We don't divorce people, we marry them. Yes. It's about being buried with a death certificate. It's about being given documents to leave the country and coming back. And I was still taking presentations from officials about those, because the civic arm is the biggest. I had not yet even taken any presentation about the second arm, which is immigration, which was the interest of Mr. Mashaba. And rushing to go and sit with him without even knowing what the whole immigration is all about. That meeting was not going to be fruitful. I was going to look like a fool, and that's what I told him. So on Monday, when I arrived in my office to find out, I actually got a surprise, because in that meeting, unlike in this presentation, which now states that certain ministers met him, when I left him, the feeling was that no Minister of Home Affairs wants to meet him. And I wanted to go and investigate and find out what were the reasons why ministers of Home Affairs may refuse to cooperate with a big city like Johannesburg, which is the economic hub of the country. I then found that Minister Gigaba met Mr. Mashaba 4 months after Mr. Mashaba came into office. They did meet. If he's not happy about the results of that meeting, that's another story. But they did meet. And I found that because I only came in June in the department, I found that in January on the 17th of this very year, Mr. Twele met Minister Mashaba. And it was not because of Mr. Mashaba's request. It was Minister Twele himself who extended an olive, and said, yes, an olive branch, and said, let's meet. And they met in the Santon office. And they even, Randburg office, they even released a joint statement together, which has been given to me this morning. A joint statement on what they are going to do together and on issues discussed. And one of the main issues was the civic thing, the issue of IDs. How many IDs have been printed by Home Affairs but not collected, and that the mayor must help. There were 90,000 of them. So that was the civic arm, which they discussed. Then they came to the issue of migration. I was also told that the provincial manager of Gauteng, after that meeting on the 19th of January, that meeting was on the 17th, on the 19th, the provincial manager, she wrote a letter to the Johannesburg municipality, asking them to come together to start implementing what was discussed in the meeting. I made to understand that that letter was not responded to. I was not there, I don't know, but I heard that the provincial manager, because Home Affairs has got provincial managers, he said, let's continue where ministers have left off. So I just wanted to clear that part. On my part, I'm still very much prepared to meet with the mayor, because I've now taken all the presentation, including immigration. I've got an idea what governs immigration, what are the rules, what's happening there. I can meet him. But at the time I got ready, he already ran here to you to look for help. And I said, no, let me respect this process. And I would also like Councillor Mashaba, as we sit and work, it's wrong to sit and talk together as leaders in a meeting. The following day you see tweets running around about, the fact that we've been confronted in a meeting, we've met and all that. I don't think that is decent for leaders to do, because then we'll start competing and not solving this problem, which is a huge problem, Chairperson. We've never denied the fact that migration is a big problem in our country. Now, the mandate of Home Affairs, as you can see there, is to facilitate and regulate the secure movement. That is the mandate under immigration. I've already dealt with civics. And to determine the status of asylum seekers, to confirm and provide enabling documents, and to enforce immigration legislation and deportations. Now, at the moment, Chairperson, the borderline of South Africa is managed by the South African National Defence Force. They are charged with the responsibility of managing the borderline, and this includes prevention and detection of illegal border crossings. The Department of Public Works is charged with the responsibility of installation and maintenance of borderline fence in order to prevent illegal crossing of people, animals, and vehicles in places that are not designated as ports of entry. Now, we accept, Chairperson, that these functions, and we have said that many times, even here in front of this portfolio committee, I presented to you once the APP, I then presented the progress. We did not hide these things, that we do have porous borders, and they are very problematic. And we presented to you the plans on what we are trying to do about the porous borders. I arrived here late in your meeting, Chairperson, because the Joint Cabinet Committee is sitting on the MTSF, and we're going to present some of these plans about what we are doing about migration. I came here, the Deputy Minister followed me because I had to leave to respect you to come here. He was still presenting on the plans which we are going to do on the issue of migration, among others, which we also presented to the Portfolio Committee in details about what our problems are. Now, I want you to understand the whole issue, because, as I said, it's a very complex global phenomenon. On the board there is the graph of migration patterns in South Africa. As you can see, from 1998, 4 years after democracy, the number of people who used to come here asking for refugee status, the asylum seekers, in 1998 there were 11,135. And as you can see over through the graph there, the highest, which happened in 2007, in 2006 was 53,000, and in 2007 it's 45,000. And the department was used to dealing with that, and its structures are designed to deal with that issue that happened since 4 years of democracy. All of a sudden in 2008, you see a big jump, which nobody was expecting and nobody was preparing for. Those blue bars there, a big jump. That big jump started in 2008. And 2008 is the year in which there was economic collapse around the world, including ours here. And so people feeling under strain of economic collapse rushed in large numbers to South Africa, whose designed processes of welcoming migrants and asylum was not designed for, because nobody expected it. But nobody ever foresaw and expected that there's going to be a world economic collapse. From that time, we started experiencing very serious backlogs. The figures that one of the members of the mayor is quoting here about appearing in court, about 100,000 and all that, they appeared from there, where you used to dealing with 45,000, 20,000, 16,000, you suddenly have 207,000. And the following year, 223, meaning in 2 years, South Africa received 500,000 people who were looking for asylum and migration. And I'm repeating, our systems were not designed to carry that. We have got to see how to meet them. But also, we were also in a recession, if you remember. So we didn't have resources to correspondingly say, look, there are too many people, more than that. We used to have 5 officials, let's increase them to 10 or 20. We didn't have such resources. It did not mean that as more and more people come, we are now able to correspondingly respond and give enough resources. I also told that issue to the Auditor General when he was worrying about budgets. I presented to you that our budget is being cut in the MTSF by 5%, 7%, and 9%. So I cannot sit here and say because there are 200,000 people more, at 45, let me increase the budget 5 times because that's what it means. I couldn't because the budget was actually being decreased. Now, what is the solution of this issue of porous borders? We never denied that our borders are porous. And the committee knows it's recorded in all your documents. What is the solution? We thought the solution will be to establish a border management authority, which members of parliament know. The bill was passed in the National Assembly in 2017, and somehow it got, because of certain complications, especially between Home Affairs and Treasury, it got stuck in the NCOP. Since May, Treasury and Home Affairs have been sitting together. We have resolved the issue. Last week, the Select Committee met with the DG to present the bill to them because they want to take it forward with a view of passing it by the end of this year and making sure that the Border Management Authority, which will now deal with the borders and resolve most of these issues. We believe that is the key, Chairperson. Because as I go on presenting, you realize that Home Affairs is not just folding its arms. It does deport people, and it's a very painful exercise. We don't want to be doing that to human beings, but we do. But it doesn't help because of the lack of border management authority. So, we are showing you here statistics, Chairperson, because I said the first solution, that's our first prize, is to establish the Border Management Authority. And maybe before that, I need to explain how it's going to work. At the moment, at the ports of entry, we've got 7 government departments or entities who are working with 58 acts of parliament and working under 7 different commanders and and we believe that's part of the problem, even when you come to the gate at the port of entry. The Border Management Authority is going to make them all fall under one authority, so that they've got a CEO or a commander or what under one authority. It will also have border guards that make sure that people come officially. The Border Management Authority is not to stop people from coming to South Africa. It's to make them come through normal legal channels. And that is what we are all about. Now, we never said we are waiting for the Border Management Authority, and therefore we can't do anything. The Department of Home Affairs is still carrying its mandates, like the inspectorate. Just in 3 months this year, that means in the 3rd quarter, from July to September, 56 operations were conducted by the inspectorate. They conducted 56 operations and arrested certain people, and those are some of the operations. Going to cell phone shops, chain stores, general dealers, saloons, other businesses, restaurants, factories. I'm just putting the statistics for that quarter. I haven't put statistics for the previous quarters or the rest of the year. So it's not true that Home Affairs is folding their arms. They are working every day around the clock. There was also a claim that Home Affairs officials work up to 4 p.m. When there is an operation and they are informed about it, they give overtime. There's no time at which Home Affairs inspectors will say, we are off, we don't work. We issue overtime, but subject to Treasury rules, which says nobody must earn more than 30% of their salary in overtime. So they are restricted by Treasury regulations, but they do work overtime, especially if they are operations. That's why they were able to carry this operation. If SAPS calls operations, Home Affairs is there. If JMPD from Johannesburg, police, the municipal police, if they call an operation and they inform us, we join them, because there's no point in carrying an operation by only one arm of government. You need police, you need Home Affairs to process, you need all that, and we've been doing that. And these are some of the Gauteng inspecting operations with the dates there. Under Ukaumala, we have shown exactly the areas where they've taken place. We have shown that because these are weekly operations in which a total arrest of 458 people have been arrested in those operations. We are even showing you some of the problematic areas because we know them. In Actonville, Hillbrow, Berry, we know all this because our inspectors are there on the ground working. That's why they know that there are all these operations. I also went with the Minister of Police, Minister Krele, Minister of Police, to Yeoville, where there was an outcry in the committee. We said there, Mayor Mashaba could not come, but he sent his representative, Mr. San, is it San? The MMC. Yes. Yes.
Order.
He was sent, he was with us.
Order.
But he apologized, he said he's rushing somewhere, he couldn't stay with us. We listened to the community there, speaking to us about the issue of brothels, crime and all that, and each person telling us that they are not xenophobic, but they want law and order. And we agreed with them, we outlined those things. And so it was a meeting which was held by SAPS, Home Affairs, and the municipality. That's why I'm saying I get a little bit confused, as if one is sitting this side and refusing even to meet with the other. That's not really how I understand it. There are other crime combating operations, which you can see there on the board, because it's not only one. And we deport, Chairperson. We deport, and I'm giving the figures of deportation. Those people are not deported because they bring themselves. They were found through the process of Home Affairs. 2015, 2016, 33,000 people were deported. 2016, 17, 23,000. 2017, 18, 15,000. 2018, 19, 24,000. 2019, 2020, just this year alone. These are the figures up to June, up to September, from at the beginning of the financial year to September. 11,000 people have already been deported. But our problems, as it was said, which you accept, is the fact that after deportation they come back because there's no border management authority. That's why we said this is the single most solution that we are looking forward to. Now, the Department of Correctional Services, every month or so, but quite often, they send us a list of foreign nationals who, whether they were documented or not, have been arrested. They've served time between 30 days and 18 years. That's what I receive almost every week or every month. People who have served time, who were arrested for criminal activities, because once you get arrested, we no longer care whether you are documented or not. You are no longer wanted in South Africa. We declare you an undesirable migrant, and we put it in your passport. Now, this year, up to from April 1st, 2019 to date, 970 such people who have served time in South Africa have been given to us. We've declared them undesirable migrants, and we have taken them to Lindela, and the process of deportation started, and quite a large number of them were deported. When you deport people, you don't just arrest them in the streets and throw them over. They've got we have got to follow processes, including calling ambassadors of those countries to come and identify at Lindela and say, yes, these are my people. But remember, we are dealing with people here who came illegally. Some of them even reject the countries they come from. When we call the ambassador, he said, no, I don't come from that country. I come from the other. And we get stuck there to find out exactly where they come from. And why do they do that? Because they want to choose countries where there's war. Because if there's no war in a particular country, if there are no problems, they won't be able to justify why they ran away. So they always choose countries where there's war and reject their own ambassadors, and it becomes a very difficult issue, which Home Affairs inspectors must investigate, and it takes time to do something like that. Now, I just wanted to finish up because the presentation from the mayor here is that Home Affairs has collapsed. Or is it collapsed or dysfunctional? I want to assure the committee, as I don't know whether the committee believes that, because we have actually presented to you. We serve 57 million citizens in 412 offices. Every year, we issue 3.1 smart cards. We register birth. Mr. Mashaba was talking emotionally about somebody giving birth today. Yes, it's our job. 816,000 births were registered within 30 days. It's in our APP, our progress report we have shown the portfolio committee. That constitutes about 88.9% of all the children were born. And we are not saying we issued birth certificate to only 88.9. The 88.9 is where we issued within 30 days of birth, because it's one of our policies. Others were issued later, but within 30 days, 88.9 birth certificates were issued for children were born, because the total was about 1,816,000. There's no department that is dysfunctional that can do something like that. We issued over 900,000 passports to South Africans who want to leave the country, and I can go on and give you this type of statistics. Now, Chairperson, as we deal with these issues, we must understand that immigration is a global issue. And we also get our guidance from organizations like the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. We get guidance from the International Office on Migration. We met them. And indeed, last week, I met Mr. Filippo Grande, who is the head of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. He came to South Africa. He met the representatives of the refugees themselves. You are aware that many were holding sit-ins at the offices here in Cape Town. When they heard that is coming to Pretoria, they held the sit-in in Pretoria. He met them and understood what their problems are. He then came to meet me about these issues of migration. He then went to meet the president, and he issued a statement. And it differs from what I'm hearing here, because he said South Africa's progressive laws and policies have provided a safe haven to many vulnerable people in need of protection and support. But South Africa is overwhelmed. And I think he mentioned the statement overwhelmed because we did show him these graphs, and when we show him figures, he said, this is overwhelming. And he decided and declared that they are going to help us to deal with this overwhelming situation. He listened to them, and many of them raised their issues, including the fact that when they are not documented, they don't get access to services and jobs. And I informed the commissioner that no, this statement is not true. Nobody is denied a service or a job because they are not documented in South Africa. You know that. I've once mentioned it, I was in health. There's not a single patient who was returned from any clinic, as Honorable, the executive mayor of Ekurhuleni said, we don't return people because they are documented. They deliver babies, they get immunization, they get ARVs. Nobody has been returned on account of not having a document. We serve them. Secondly, I met with the Minister of Basic Education. Immediately after receiving a report that some kids are sent home from schools because they are not documented, I said, no, allow the kids to go to school. Let us as parents document, because no child must be deprived of education because they are not documented. and the minister issued a circular, which we also told the High Commissioner about. Then comes the issue of jobs. The issue of jobs, Chairperson, you understand it very well, is a problem faced by South Africans also. Every single South African is faced with this problem we assist with. It's not only foreign nationals, and they are not deprived of jobs because of documentation. I'll tell you why. There have been 3 court judgments here in this country. The Wachenuka judgment of 2002, where the judge ruled that because South Africa does not put people in camps, they have to fend for themselves while they are applying for asylum. They've got the right to work. That's a ruling in court, and that's why some of the employers employ them. So there's nothing that says because this person is a foreign national who is undocumented, they can't get a job. It's a court judgment, and which is being respected. The other judgment, Bula versus the state in 2011, was about business. Again, that because South Africa does not put people in camps where they are helped and fed by United Nations and other agencies, they've got to fend themselves. Even if they are still applying for asylum, they don't have any document, they can own a business. And lastly, the Somali Association in 2014, where the judges ruled that when they are still applying for asylum, if the Section 24 notice, it's 24 or 22? 22, sorry. The one we give you for 6 months to keep on applying for asylum because we give you that permit for 6 months. The ruling was that even if it's expired and the process is not yet over, that person cannot be sent away. So all these rulings have got a manner of protecting, and that's why the High Commissioner was saying South Africa has got progressive laws which protect the vulnerable. If we are still unable to issue documentation, it's because we are overwhelmed because of that graph. The Commissioner even said we appreciate South Africa's challenges of hosting refugees at a time of economic uncertainties and social tensions. We'll continue to support the government in its effort to build a social cohesion and appreciate the President's call for tolerance and dialogue. Now, lastly, Chairperson, the statement from UN says, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees recognized that, like many other countries, South Africa is confronted with challenges of addressing increasingly complex population flows. Asylum system has become under immense strain as conflict and persecution drive more refugees across borders, while migrants resort to asylum channels in the absence of safe, regular, and a migration option. This is a global challenge. That's what Mr. Grandi said. And he said preserving fair and efficient asylum system is vital. But to function effectively, they must be accompanied by safe, regular migration channels and other arrangements. And he ended up by saying they met with business people, they met with civil society organizations, and he asked them to support the vulnerable and create opportunities for them while they are in this country, while some of them are waiting for documentation. Now, Chairperson, I want to repeat again, we are ready to meet, whether Salka, the Executive Mayor of Johannesburg Municipality, the Executive Mayor of Ekurhuleni, none of us alone can be able to solve this problem. I have now taken these presentations. I know what immigration is all about. I know the laws, I know some of the rules. I might not have completed that. I'm ready to meet the mayor. In July, I wasn't. I was just going to sit there in front of him like a stooge and listen, and I don't think I was going to solve this problem. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. We are going to allow the members